Welcome back to the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. I have with me today two interesting guests. Yes, you heard that right. You're seeing that right. You're getting two for the price of one. And with me is Danielle and her husband, who is gonna introduce himself because he's gonna go by his native name. I'm not even gonna try. I'm gonna butcher that entirely, just like Danielle butchered my name, as many Americans do. It's fine. It's literally, I think, like out of 10 podcasts I do with Americans, is the first question I get. It's like, so how do I pronounce your name? It's like, okay, yeah. But yeah, thank you both for joining me today. And for those who may not be familiar with you or your work, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? What's your secrets?
Well, I'm Danielle Worthen-Cullumber. I'm an LCSW. I call myself a holistic trauma therapist because I incorporate the paranormal and spirituality of things, as well as being an actual trauma therapist. And I'm the CEO of Willow Medela Wellness, LLC. And my COO, is my husband. I'll have him introduce himself.
So my name is Gvnage Mishipeshu. I come from the Ojibwe tribe from Michigan, but my mother is Irish. So that's why I'm a little more pale than the regular white man and more darker than the regular black man. But I also have been studying a lot of Norse mythology between Zeus and Thor and Odin and a lot of different, I call them friends because technically they are, because they're more friends. They're not really, we don't really worship them, but we kind of go to them for more like answers. It's like, how do I get more money? How do I do this? It's never gimme. Yeah. It's more of an ask, isn't it? Ask and receive.
It's asking for...
You don't go to Jesus for $20 million and suddenly he gives it to you. And it's like, no, you ask Jesus and he'll give it to you. So just like any other deity.
Yeah, so, it's more so asking for advice. For, some support. Advice, support.
So we're both psychic mediums, and we actually found each other, a holistic community here in Utah, because there's a lot of us that are gifted. And I was doing my own trauma work during my master's program when I lost 4 family members in a year and a half. And I met my future husband on the first day and did not know that he would be my future husband. And I was a closeted psychic medium because I couldn't share that, because there's a lot of trauma around those labels and narratives. And when I met him, I was like, why do I feel like I know him? Why can I relax with him? But with our relationship, it actually empowered me in my practice more, because it gave me a different narrative to understand how we connect with spirituality and things like that. Because in Utah, we're known to be in a bubble because we do not really...
and most of us come from an LDS background.
It is saturating the community. Yes, we have a lot more diverse
people, but they mostly will be like a non-pagan or a non-binary pagan who, they believe in both things, but they also want to kind of do their own thing. And that's okay. We ran into a lady who was just over at our local Chick-fil-A drive-thru, and she's like, I have tattoos, and so
she started asking questions.
And I was like, I'm pagan.
So then the inclusivity would be not just non-denominational in anything particular. It's about the whole person, how they connect. So that's where our goal is with our practice, is allowing that conversation to be in a safe space without judgment. Plus, we are also paranormal investigators, and that trauma I'd been looking at years before we met, because I was a paranormal investigator. I'm the co-founder of Rocky Mountain Utah Paranormal, and we were very active in the early 2000s. But the things I was noticing was the culture and community was still traumatizing because they weren't doing their self-care. Their stories of childhood trauma from maybe paranormal experiences, maybe from their gifts or just from the unseen explained, was constantly a narrative they couldn't address because all those stigmas with mental health versus who's going to believe me.
Yeah. I mean, that still seems to be a stigma for some reason, even though
Absolutely.
it's 2025 and we've seen some weird things happening, and things seem to get weirder with the week. I'd even say it's almost every week that we, discover something new or see something up in the skies or in the ocean or whatever. Well, yeah, I can imagine that, especially in Utah, which is known for its very strict, very close and kind of close-minded Mormon community.
Close encounters than people realize.
Yeah, I think it's more close because there's so much unexplained stuff happen here. We have ley lines here in Utah. We have the Great Salt Lake, which is a conduit itself, and we got the granite for the mountains. I mean, we have like a lot of...
And we got 2 native lands that are both on Skinwalker ranches. We got down south in Utah, we got Skinwalker Canyon. You go up north and up near Bear Lake. There's a small little town, and there's a Skinwalker Ranch, which you've probably heard of that.
Yeah.
And so
there's
a lot of paranormal. And I used to live up in the area, and did I see some weird things? Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
You go in the middle of the night, and suddenly you're like, what was that? And it wasn't a bear.
Yeah, and what we were finding was because I always felt like I was an outlier, which is kind of weird when you think anything when you have holistic stuff to be an outlier, because I was the mental health person. I had that. I was realizing that breath work, cacao ceremonies, vibrations from the sound bowls, those things, when I was looking at it back in 2020 and on, I was like, wait, we have these research and I've known about it, but they weren't teaching me how to connect to it. And so I was trying to find a bridge to bring both together, and I'll be in groups and they'll introduce me later as the therapist, and people are like, what? Because I was outlier, but it wasn't until I found out he also did ghost hunting that we really clicked, and we started ghost investigating, and I was able to relax more into my gifts because I had someone to validate what I was experiencing, hearing, feeling, sensing, not just trying to get the evidence on camera, recorder, or anything. And but because that, we have a network of people that we know that support other people. So if we can't do it, we'll refer you to somebody else, because we're all in this together. We're all experiencing this journey of self-discovery and healing.
Yeah. No, that sounds a lot like the story of my wife as well. She has always had certain gifts, but never really was able to open up about it because, you're still kind of the odd one out because you see things that others don't. And it's, not just imaginary friends like your kids would have, for example. Like you see actual people. I mean, she is, and it's really weird. Sometimes like channels my brother. Like we lost my brother 3 years ago, and she sometimes still channels him. So like I'm hearing my brother speak to me through my wife, which is so incredibly odd. I mean, I have fully accepted it. I know it's a thing that is real and that happens sometimes.
Welcome to our relationship, because
that stuff happens to all the time.
Constantly, because I lost my brother, I've lost my stepfather, my grandmother,
your dad,
and I lost my dad a year ago. It was actually the anniversary of his passing last Sunday, and we were actually able to experience his transition in the most beautiful way. And I could feel my brother. I had to tell my brother kind of to back off. I'm like, can I kind of be here on this plane with Dad without you kind of poking at me? Well, he's hearing my father have a commentary like he's having a party. And after he transitions, he came home. Comes home and goes, your dad is like poking at me because he knows I can hear him.
And knowing that, we were taking a trip out into Hawaii, and we were going up the elevator to our room, and suddenly the elevator just stops on the 3rd floor.
And we can't get it
to go up.
And then the fire alarm goes off.
The fire alarm goes off. I'm like, oh no.
It's like,
then we're like, Dad,
because my father likes to mess with electrical stuff. He actually
he was an electrician for the state of Utah.
Yeah, he worked for the power company. He actually helped design most of the grids throughout Utah through my childhood, and so it was kind of reminiscent because right after he passed away, we were in Wendover, Nevada, for my stepmom's birthday. It was already planned, and literally at 6:00 in the morning, the fire alarm just on our floor went off. So the fact that it happened a year later in Hawaii and just on our floor, we're just like, of course Dad would do this.
Oh, that's not the only time he's done that.
Yeah. So let's just say that our relationship's fun with the paranormal because they know that we're going to ask those questions and explore and have fun with it.
Yeah, that definitely keeps things interesting.
Yeah.
That's
we're
one
just
way.
a normal married couple too.
Wow. Okay. So when we weren't recording yet, like we already kind of spoke on the life coach stuff, on the trauma stuff. How do you incorporate like the your gifts with the healing of trauma? How do you incorporate the spiritual, the paranormal with the processing?
So he's asking me how I do
trauma.
it, and then I'll segue. So how this works is because it is medical most of the time they come in, there's a HIPAA, there's confidentiality. But if there's something more outside it, we can refer. But when a client comes in, they're not looking to see me for the paranormal part. They're just trying to heal. And as we go along, I discover and they disclose things to me in the sessions where I can tap into it. Or they were referred to me by somebody else because of my gifts and what they know I can do. But it's always about the client of what they're asking for because they'll usually tell me what they need. And if it's a paranormal thing, they'll be honest with me. But we're going to also look at all those other factors that's impacting them. So the life coach, though, helps because I can't see clients legally outside of the state that I'm licensed in. So as a life coach, I can bring in the more holistic part and we can talk about the paranormal stuff. And you're not going to be diagnosed in mental health. There's always going to be tied to a diagnosis of some sort because there's going to be billing insurances. So this is a way around to meet the client where they're at and get the needs they need. And the nice thing is he's also a life coach, but he can do the other stuff where we offer like the sound baths, the energy, but also we're also looking at the legal part where he can't put his hands on you because only a doctor, if you have a license like a technician for hair, massage therapist can touch you. You have to have a special license and oversight. And that's one of those things where we're looking at is accountability in the healing process. And that's offered to the clients because they want like cords cut. Let's educate what a cord cutting does. Sometimes it's a need, but it's also causing another trauma because it's an energy. Once you take something out, something's going to fill back in. So we're going to teach you how to regulate yourself, how to navigate your day to day, even with your extrasensories that are maybe pinging, because everybody has a biorhythm, no matter if it's related to a mental health issue, to a pain factor, to just day-to-day stressors. And that all encompasses the whole of how those hit those different domains. So for me, what's unique about my gift is if you have a paranormal experience, I actually can tap into what you're seeing. I can actually visually see it in my gifts. But if it's a mental health thing, like I'm going to use, because people can have a reference for schizophrenia because just by the label. I've actually had clients where they had schizophrenia and gifts. I cannot see the actual lens of the illness of what they're explaining. So I always tell my clients, I will never tell you what to do. I will always ask. And you don't have to try to convince me of something. Just tell me how you understand it because I can tap in. If I have a question, I will ask because that gives you autonomy in your narrative and your journey and story. And that goes to the whole spirituality and the ancestral healing. And I consult with him sometimes off base without the client asking questions so I can do better. But they also have the option to talk to him because he has gifts and access to things that I don't have. But it has to be on the terms of the client and it's never forced. It's always asked. And there's always the confidentiality, the HIPAA. We actually have paperwork say, hey, we're going to stay within these roles. I will never do a dual role of a life coach and a mental health therapist with a client. because it's a conflict of interest.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because if you think about it, if you give me as a life coach, you're still getting my gifts as a therapist. I'm just not doing the diagnosis. But if I'm doing the mental health, I'm already going to give you the skills that you need. But if you have to talk about your paranormal, it's still going to be safe within the therapeutic realm. And we're going to be targeting all those other areas. So we never are going to dismiss what you need, but we may have to look how we bridge that gap in a healthy way. So I hope that explained enough for you.
Yeah, no, I think I understand. It's a lot. It's so very different from here in the Netherlands, of course, but I do understand. You mentioned patients who have both gifts and schizophrenia. I'm not sure how much you can tell us about it, but doesn't that make things incredibly complicated?
Well, what was interesting is a lot of these experiences I had was way before I was a mental health therapist. I used to be a recreational therapist and then just a regular social worker where I would go into care facilities and help people. I would have clients where I would walk in the care facility and the spirits would be like, oh, it was a feeding frenzy of eating off the mental health disparities that these clients were, or residents, because they lived there, were having. And I would realize in a short amount of time that what was actually them struggling with their mental health versus a paranormal thing just kind of agitating them. And I got to the point where I'd walk into a care facility and the spirits were like, she's here. And they just would part ways. And I'd be in the middle of a session. I'd be like, hey guys, you're not helping. You got to back off. Because I always treat spirits with respect. Because just like a human, aren't we transitioning kind of with our same personalities and stuff? So if you're poking the bear, you're like people, I'm going to use the narrative dance monkey dance when they do paranormal shows, like, do this, do that. I'm like, I get agitated. I wouldn't want to be nice doing it. So if I talk with respect and keep that boundaries, then I am able to do my job or meet the client's need. So the schizophrenia was an isolated situation and with one client, but I have clients that are bipolar, personality disorders, and they have those audio delusions and stuff. So I have to work through to find out what is actually happening versus not. And usually I can scan pretty quickly what it is. I can pick it up. I'm just that intuitive with it. But with him, he can pick up things differently than me. He'll say, he goes, I feel that you've had someone doing, and he doesn't know the client. He doesn't have a clue. I'm like going, yeah, thanks for validating.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that's within the paranormal community. My wife absolutely loves those shows, and she's always dragging me into the next adventure. It's like, okay, here we go again. I want to do this and I want to go there. It's like, yes, dear, I know. We're gonna have to be multimillionaires by this point if we want to do all of that and live 3 lifetimes. But that's the one thing that she has also told me, and that I'm also starting to see is the dance, monkey dance. It's the agitating of the spirits. It's like, oh, you're not getting the reaction that you want. I'm just gonna, I mean, yeah, like you said, poke the bear, try to get a reaction out of it. I mean, I like, even still living, I hate when people do that. I mean, if it's a reaction they're looking for, it's a reaction they're going to get. It's
Right.
not going to be a nice one.
When we watch the shows, we will actually be able to see or sense what's going on in the show. And sometimes we get validated before something happens in the show. I've ruined more surprises by going, I feel like, he goes like, shh, you ruined the show.
Go ahead. Right now.
Like,
It's like, oh, did you see that? Did you see that?
Like, yes, I did.
Taking Friday nights to another level.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. So you mentioned that you lost 4 of your loved ones in a year and a half. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I would say that my 2020 happened in 2019. What happened? I was previously married, so my first husband's grandmother died 2 weeks before Christmas, and then my grandmother, who I was very close to, died on January 2nd of 2019, and then that June, my brother passed away from suicide. He struggled with bipolar, and then 4 months later, my stepfather passed away, and I literally had to navigate that while I was in the middle of my master's program. And I swear every time I was in a class, something would happen related to what I was experiencing. And I wasn't even sure if I was going to finish school because it was so hard to regulate and not know how to manage grief, let alone have consecutive back to back. And then, but it was amazing because when I say spirit, that I use all inclusive because wherever the energy comes, but a lot of my family members were coming to me going, and you're good. This is actually part of the process. This allows, and every time somebody passed away, I feel that I looked at it like a soul contract happened. Or when they passed away, they gave me access to new information about my gifts, who I was. And that led me, it was after my stepfather passed away. That's when I met my husband here within a month. It was actually the weekend of my birthday. So it was kind of like this weird, strange alignment for me. But I've always been able to see patterns and references. And I just follow these breadcrumbs. And I see spirit likes to play with me because of like, hey, let's take you on an adventure. I'm like, okay, let's go. And then when I finally show up where I'm supposed to, I'm like going, okay, that was pretty cool. Because they know I enjoy those things, my spirit guides and things like that. And even after the 1 year mark celebrating, I was getting pings on an event that was going to happen, but didn't realize that I'd be part of a sexual assault from massage, a place that wasn't technically licensed apparently during COVID. And I had been feeling something was off from the place. I had been a patron to them prior, but it turns out that the proprietor assaulted not just me, but 4 other individuals, and 3 of us were able to send the person to prison. And because I reported it, I was able to look at connecting with victims of trauma better because I was just graduating and we're in the middle of COVID. So if I hadn't already had that support group or where my husband, I wouldn't be who I am today as the holistic therapist because I walked the dark road, but I also did my work.
Yeah.
And that's why I can actually talk to spirits who have been through trauma too, because the narrative may be their own story, but the response is always very similar.
So how do you balance that, like the very real, valid human emotions of, losing someone in short order, but then at the same time, having your gift? Does that make it easier? Does that make it more difficult, perhaps, because you can still see that person, hear that person, sense that person?
Not just for me, it's been liberating. I mean, I can't speak for him, but I learned how to do. I created my own template of coping skills from breath work and everything, and found I incorporated things that were already out there. I'm like, going, if this works, what happens? We put all this together. We apparently get a lot of bang for our buck. I learned about talking more about maintenance, advocating. When I deal with clients with trauma, yeah, I may have a reference to maybe a experience that is similar, but I'm not doing a counter transference of putting it on them. It's the same thing with spirits. When you're taking on their emotions and that regulating, yeah, I can pick up on my client's stuff before I've seen them, before I've to strangers. I'm like, why am I feeling this way? And I will always ask him, and I will go through steps of grounding and going, okay, everything I've done, this should have helped me. This is somebody else. And usually when I find out who it is, it immediately goes away. It's kind of like a pre-shadowing of what they're going through. I'm empathing before I even know who I'm connected to, or seeing things before it's going to happen. So it just became more normalized, but also allowing the unfolding without judgment, because I'm still human. I'm going to respond like anybody else, but I just happen to have tools to help me. And that's my goal, is to teach other people. And when we got together, he taught me about the spiritual aspect of things so I could ask more clearly to help my guides and my ancestors and be more authentic. I think he can speak better to that on that side.
I mean, if you want to, please do.
Yeah, well, let's kind of start from the beginning. So I have also became a victim of a bad marriage also. So we've all had those partners that they bring us up, they teach us, they show us what they kind of know, and that's kind of what we learn from our partners is what they kind of learn their past and they kind of bring into their relationship. And I met a girl who lived here in Salt Lake, and she had some interesting gifts and abilities, let's call them. And we got together, we got to know each other, and after a while it just kind of went south. But while I was still in that bad relationship, I was still trying to grow my gifts of what is paganism, who is what, and what is Loki. And so getting to learn all these different deities and religions and different cultures, it actually helped me through my process of going through a bad marriage, then getting incarcerated and then coming out of it and just go, and it really is more so like a roller coaster. You just kind of go up and you kind of go down. And not only that, my parents lived on a haunted property, and so not only that, I experienced the ghosts. I experienced the paranormal. My sister, when I was like 8 years old, 9 years old, woke up from a panic scream, and she says, "I saw the devil. He was standing right in front of me." And my parents called up the bishop and like, "Better get your butt down here. We got some real big issues." And I'm like, I wake up, I'm like, okay, what is going on? Because I'm like, you're screaming. There's stuff moving around in my room. I'm like, what just happened? Because I would have like 8 years old, toys on the floor and everything. And an 8-year-old. Cars move around. Your papers like underneath the bed. I'm like, and one night I actually woke up in the middle of the night. I was like, oh, I'm so tired. I just need a drink of water. So I went to go get a drink of water. And I came back, and my parents have a kind of a high balcony on one side of the house. And so I kind of looked down, like, who's that strange man? He kind of had like a cat face mask on, and like he looked Egyptian. I'm like, kind of scary. Let's go back underneath the covers and not deal with that. And I just, over time, I just kind of learned, it's like, okay, I'm hearing stuff, I'm seeing things, I'm feeling emotions I normally don't feel as a little boy, of being, let's call it, transparent on both sides of, because I hanged out with not so much my brothers, but I hanged out with a lot of my sister when I was younger, and so I kind of, well, I got curious, let's call it, as a kid.
Sure.
And so I learned that I was like, okay, this is how women feel. This is how women feel. Like, they go through this and they go through that. I'm like, okay, now how do we relate this to the world? How do we relate this to paganism? Let's talk about that. What? I mean,
The masculine and feminine.
the masculine and feminine,
yeah.
and I'm like, okay, so we got all this, and suddenly I meet this strange and weird woman who would just do drum circles and play her magical flute and just dance around the fire naked. I'm like, what? And so I'm like, okay. And she's like, I have a group that we come in, we support each other, and we drink a cow. I'm like, come join us. Okay.
And that's the group that I discovered.
And so
a while later,
we've kind of met when she was a little bit of younger. Let's call it, when she was a little bit younger, and I was a little bit younger, but we were kind of not at that age yet. And so it's like, okay, we like each other, but let's keep our distance, because we have partners that are like, rah.
Our relationship started completely out of friendship and just community, and then it just kind of came to the head where we were both leaving our marriages and kind of
passionately loving with each other.
And then when our friendship kind of grew from there. So we always said, and that was the other thing with our relationship when we got together, is go, I'll be your friend first, but I'm not going to be your therapist.
Never your therapist.
Never your therapist.
That's always the joke.
Yeah, I'm married to a therapist, but she's not my therapist.
She's married. Yeah.
No, it's a good line to not cross. It's a good one to keep.
It goes back to that the healthy boundary thing for the healing. So he still asks those questions. I'm still learning through other people too, what they're able to do. I mean, my gifts, I was late bloomer. I had them always, but they were closeted, like I said. But it wasn't until Chip Coffey, the famous psychic medium, and it was doing Penn State. And Kindred Spirits, all those shows, they came out with a show called Psychic Kids. And I was pregnant with my 2 middle children, both times. And I was like, wait, these kids are doing what I'm doing. What's going on? So I start asking questions, and I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of research, and my gifts I found through the reading and observing other people. So when I got into the group, I wasn't just hearing paranormal stuff. I was hearing gifts that was never talked about. And then, but the constant was the trauma response. And that's why everyone was there. They were trying to heal something. They're working on themselves. But what I was observing was people didn't have a framework that would work for them, that was, in terminology alone, was actually even traumatizing. So it's like, maybe we should ask more permission first, or should we do this? So I'd make suggestions. I would never force anything. We would have, it's almost like a community council when we have a conversation, when we had groups. So what was neat is it wasn't even anything religious. It was just people having a common interest, like drum circles, moon ceremonies, whatever you have. There's a common goal for meeting up. And usually most people don't even see each other. And you only know each other through passing through these communities. So but there was still that theme of trauma and healing. And I think one of the most beautiful things I ever heard was during one of those ceremonies or meetings. It was a retreat. And someone mentioned during a moon ceremony, goes, when do we get permission to stop healing? And I was like, what a wonderful concept. Yeah. Epiphany right there, right? I'm like, we're spending so much time trying to heal it, but when can we ask ourselves, when are we done healing? That gives us that potential of going, hey, I can call it when I'm done. And if I want to pick up somewhere else and work on something else, I can do that. And I have many clients that come and go, I've already worked on that. I'm like, okay, great. I won't touch it unless you bring it up. But if we find a connection and we find there's a correlation, we can touch that. But I will not touch that, because that is your choice and that's your timing. And that goes with anything. And that's also with spirits. They don't want to touch certain things. There's a reason why. You have to respect that. Don't push it. So a lot of times we have spirits that go in and we have the narrative, the story of their trauma or the haunting or their passing. That narrative is re-traumatizing constantly. Just to think, if you were retelling your story over and over again, wouldn't you get stuck in that narrative and that identity?
Yeah, you definitely would. I know people like that, have known people like that. You know, their traumas it's who they are. It's what they are. It's
exactly.
the only
and we do a lot of trauma bonding with it.
Yeah. God,
it gets icky. It gets icky really fast. And then we get dependent, and then we continue doing these ceremonies. And now I have no problems getting plant medicine or anything, but there's people or individuals, I'm just saying individuals, that will be repetitive in what they do because that's their journey, but it becomes addiction. Everything we do is a behavior, and we can get addicted to our own behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and it's hard to see that. It's hard to ground that.
It's not really hard if you actually understand
the concept.
The concept and the prefix of behind even the word addiction. It's a Greek word meaning something you love passionately. I mean, we have all these artists and sculptors back then that were so passionate that their wives just pretty much left them. Like, you're just too passionate about this. You're too addicted.
Yeah. So we're not shaming the behavior. We're not shaming the behavior. But what we're looking at is this. And we're let's just kind of I'm going to stereotype this, the paranormal person that they take out a spirit board, a Ouija board, or a spirit box, and they start talking to the paranormal. It can get quickly addicting, going, this is exciting because we get a dopamine high and we're discovering stuff about ourselves and information that we weren't aware of. But we don't realize we're also traumatizing ourselves potentially to the unknown of what we don't know what safety is and what safe that is. So as long as you know how to regulate yourself, checking with yourself, you're not going to be overcome by what could be a good behavior can actually turn into a bad behavior. And what people look at as a bad behavior can actually be a good behavior for some people. So we're not going to judge it because it's whatever the person needs. And so it goes back to when you're asked, how hard is it with hearing people pass or trauma? I'm like going, It depends on how you had that relationship with that. My brother passed away from suicide. Yes, that's how he transitioned, but that's not why. I know he struggled with mental health. It's like a cold. It was just one of those things, like a car accident. But he's still in my life, in just on the other side. And I get to talk to him, and he's a pain in the ass most of the time. Part of my language, but he's fun. And he was a young father. And I've talked to several people who transitioned that have crossed over that way, and I never blamed them, because there's a window of where we're not in that right state. And if we can get outside that 10 minutes of window, we can actually do well. People feel stigmatized for having suicidal ideations. There's that irrational negative thought that we hear in our head. Well, spirit sometimes can actually help push it sometimes, but it's not always that. So we have to work through what is that narrative that we have for ourselves, because we're going to be more cruel to ourselves too than our neighbor that we hate down the road. It's just that we're always outsourcing stuff.
Yeah. No, and just understanding the both sides of it, the positive, the negative. It's so important. Reminds me of when I was in my early years, I discovered pendulum, swinging a pendulum through.
That's how I learned. That was my first deviation to like that. So trust me, when I found that was going on, that blew my mind. So
yeah, well, I was this young, cocky 20-year-old. Now I'm just cocky. Then I discovered it through my back then girlfriend, who definitely was dealing with a lot of trauma, thinking back to it. And being the young gun that I was, I didn't see the dangers of it. I was aware of what it did, or what, she told me it did. I had some experience with it, but I started to use it as a party trick. That's until I remember this clearly. The event itself definitely traumatized me. I've since moved past it, but I was on vacation in the UK, traveling through the UK, starting in Scotland, going down to London, just by myself. First trip, like by myself. Big deal. I was sitting in front of the York Minster because I wanted to visit that, visit the place where Guy Fawkes met his end. So it's how I got my screen name. And it's probably the dumbest decision I made during those weeks. I was, working the pendulum in front of the church. And, when I tried to close the session, whoever I was communicating with wasn't letting me. And I was like, this has never happened before. I don't know how to deal with this. I want to go home. This is scary. Why isn't it letting me? And I had to, make certain promises. Nothing too major, but, it felt like a pretty big deal. Like it was scary, and it was only then that I realized how powerful of a tool it actually can be. And from that moment on, I quit just anything spiritual for years because it just freaked me out so much.
too much, huh?
But after smartening up on it and actually starting to when I started to respect it, is when I came on the path that I am now of Germanic polytheism. But yeah, that was scary. And I should have known better. But as I said, I was young, cocky, and just like, this is fun. This is a fun party trick, and I'm just gonna do it in front of the church because I'm definitely gonna get something. Yes, I did.
So just even the observation of you reflecting on that experience, like you said, it was traumatizing, and post-traumatic stress disorder, you don't have to have that to have adverse effect from a traumatic experience. We all go through incidences, but you did learn some things, but there's still those residuals of that experience and how that impacted you. And with my background and my education, I can go, hey, let's look at that attachment style. And I actually just recently, like the previous week, had a question about attachment styles. And this is how our relationships with people and ourselves. I'm like, how does that attachment style relate to the paranormal? Because they're like, there's an attachment to this attachment. Like, I was like, I want to explore that narrative a little bit more with the paranormal community, because that trauma is that attachment, but whatever that individual thing, we're just going to call it a thing, was communicating with you and trying to convince you to do things for it on its behalf. So you became its tool.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't that I needed to do things on its behalf, but
but
it was
based on the narrative. Based on the narrative,
yeah. No,
that was
I
the
had
context
to.
we took. But
I had to be better. I had to do better.
But doesn't it feel good to kind of say, "Hey, I can speak about that now." You couldn't probably done that like maybe 4 years ago, even before you got on your path. Even you said you took a break. These are the self-discoveries that we do with our gifts. That's what happens is we accidentally get burned. I'm going to just put in quotes. We get burned by the accidentals because we don't have a reference. I had my own experience with the pendulum too, where I was asking it too many times. So it became almost an addiction. It's like, "Ooh, this is cool." Finally, it started telling me lies. And I was like, "Whoa, okay, what's going on?" And then they said, "You're using it too much. We had to stop your cycle for you to pause." And I'm like, "Okay." So I put it away. I only bring it out when necessary and prompted to. Otherwise, I have other tools, but I didn't know. I was like, it's like a parlor trick, like you said. It gets exciting going, I can get answers through this and is communicating. Well, I was young in my 20s as well. And I was a young mom and I was hearing things and I was like, but I couldn't talk to people. My ex-husband was a skeptic. I was married for 25 years and I could only be half the person I was. I didn't leave my marriage because it was a bad marriage per se. I had to leave because I couldn't be me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that sounds familiar. I mean, it's my wife tells me all the time that it is through me being able to accept that she has those gifts, and even though it is weird sometimes, even though it is hard for her sometimes, I am still there for her. If she asks me, I will do, those rituals with her. And sometimes she'll tell me like, "Hey, we need to do something because there's something there. There's something about you that is off. We need to clear some stuff." And I mean, at first, stubborn as I am, I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. It's like, but she always manages to convince me, and afterwards I do feel better. Yes, honey, I
We had these conversations too.
Yeah, so
like you said, we're a normal married couple. We just happen to have similar abilities
and experiences.
Yeah. So, sir, in regards to your path of paganism, polytheism, how do you combine that with your practice and also the fact that you are of native heritage? I mean, over the years I have seen many connections between native spirituality, European spirituality, but it's not something that you hear often or something that you often think about.
Let me tell you about my friend Phil. So my friend Phil, this is a different Phil. And so my friend Phil, he was a Buddhist pagan. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. How can you be Buddhist and still have all these other deities? And he explained it to me. It's like, it's not about who you worship. It's it's pretty much about the journey. And so when you go through these life journeys, because what ends up happening is I started comparing all these into different boxes of Wicca and molecule. I can't say it. Yeah, the monotheism. And you come back down to of Earth religions, because truthfully, a lot of people want to say, "Oh, Wicca's an Earth religion." No, they worship little fairies and little gnomes, and just they know these little, okay, and so you kind of just learn these little creatures. And so, but in native heritage, everybody is family. Everybody is going to be connected. Everybody is connected. We're connected to the fairies. We're connected to the mythical creatures. We're connected to the earth. We're connected to the trees were connected to Gaia, and that's kind of what the Native American heritage of myself is so proud to announce. Like, I can actually connect all the dots. It's like, you guys took this and you guys took this. Oh, by the way, did you know the Vikings came up through this and went around here? And so there's a lot of Native American heritage going that way. And so you guys took a lot of what we have here over there, and what we took over here over there. And there's a lot of mixed cultures. It's not just one. It's everybody has a thing. I mean, you got the black people who, and the Cubans, they came up with voodoo, the voodoo. Technically, that's African.
Yeah.
There you go. And so when you come into Native American, they're not really religions, they're lifestyles. When you come into the lifestyles of Native American heritage, you respect what you eat, you respect what you grow, and you respect who you are. If you feel a little gay, well, you respect that. And people in your tribe respect that. It's like, oh, he's a little fruity. You guys should know that. He's a little fruity. In relationships, in our heritage, we didn't always stick with one. It was, well, I learned from you, and then I moved on, and I learned from you. And because a lot of us, I never had the experience to grow up with my aunties, to grow up with my grandparents. My parents did. They had that experience because, truthfully, that's kind of how it was back then. I didn't have to deal with that. My parents learned from their grandparents, and they taught me of what they know with what life is, and how it grows and how it doesn't grow, and how I relate this into my normal practice is I'm constantly reading. I'm constantly studying this. I'm like, where did that word come from? And how is that related to this? Who are these people, and where did this? And so I'm always comparing of who did what and where did. And so when going back to school, my favorite thing was history, even though I already knew, it's like, okay, Columbus didn't really come here. We all know that he didn't really arrive here. He actually technically arrived in Cuba.
Yeah.
It's a little tiny island. He's like, we landed in America. No, you landed in Latin America.
Close, but
So
just,
he literally does study all the time. He writes things down. I mean, even right before this recording.
I have my book, and it's a 200,000 page book. I'm constantly writing. I'm like, okay, today's thought is, I go through it. I'm like, okay, today's thought is, let's talk about numbers today, and who was born where, and how were they born, and what deficiencies did they have when they were born, and how did that relate to their life, and what kind of problems and issues could have they had. And I'm like, okay, well, for starters, they were born in Tiger Year. Second, they died in Monkey Year. And so now we have the Chinese zodiacs going on here. I can kind of see where I pick and choose a lot of different belief systems. And because I believe that really everybody's right, but nobody's right. I mean, you got the Aztecs that believe that the world's supposed to end in 2012, but technically we're still going.
The calendar.
The calendar. And so it's like, you pick and choose of what you can do in paganism. And that's why I loved it so much, is you was like, okay, I like that idea. Jesus, you're a cool dude, but I'm going to put you in the back burner for a second, because right now I'm kind of questioning your motives.
Yeah.
So he will do these studies, and then he will tell me what he's learned. And because he's done that studying, he's educating me, and that empowers me as a practitioner. And not just with my gifts, but as a therapist, because then I can be more anti the narratives of stigmas and biases, anti-racism, and oppression, because these things that he's talking about correlate with these things and the dogmas that we have. Yeah. So I get to have a safer space of knowing how to meet my client where they're at without them feeling that they have to teach me first so they can do their healing. And that's been the problem. perpetuated in healing processes.
And I've been to plenty of therapists, and I explain this, like, this is my belief, and this is kind of how I understand things. And they'll try to get into it, but half the time they're really off on their own boat on believing what they believe. I'm like, that's great and wonderful, but
it's about him, not you.
It's about me and not you on the healing.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can heal together, that's great. We can have group therapy, but
you're here to help support him.
You're here to help and support me on where I'm at. And so it was very hard and difficult. And so I would go to therapy. I would go to these different people, psychiatrists and dietitians and all these different people who would say, there's something wrong with you. Are you sure? Are you sure there's something wrong with me? Because truthfully, I have these ideas and they sound okay, but you're saying they're not okay. Okay. But why are you still talking about your car?
Yeah. So that's been the problem, is that the medical model doesn't meet the whole person.
No.
And then one of the things when I was a kid, my father even said this too to me, was the reason why it's called practicing medicine, because they're practicing it.
Yeah.
There's no 100%. So that's why I think if a positive came out of COVID was that we were able to start talking about mental health as a real conversation instead of a stigma. But we still have cultures that have to be respected for how they go about it. They're saying they're not going to go to a therapist. They're going to go to the medicine man. He's a medicine man. They're not going to come to me. In different languages, there is not a therapist. It means doctor or counselor. So when I wasn't even a therapist yet, they called me the doctor. I had to stop trying to correct that narrative, because that's their voice, not my voice. And that's being disrespectful as the predominant lens that I show up as. So I have to question that and keep, and then because I've been able to do that and meet with him where he's at, the healing with the paranormal meeting with the clients. And when I say clients, I'm talking about those that have passed over on that veil and presently. They're responding better. We were in Hawaii. We were on a ghost tour. We were getting information. We had evidence from voice box and my intuition. We were getting things where that story is incorrect. We had, that's racist. We had to kind of help them to relook at how they're telling the story, because the Hawaii, the people, they're very spiritual. The whole thing's about spirituality and connection. And we were crossing a cemetery and there was a mausoleum of one of the princes. And I energetically said, I'm going to respect you and not take a picture. And the next thing I see, and I saw it with my regular eyes, not with my gifted, a full body shadow person standing in front as a thank you. And I told that, and I was honored because I was being respectful and I got reciprocated back. I got to see something from a lens that I don't usually see, which is my normal visual eyes, because the experience of a human body is solely different when I'm resonating my higher self and paranormal senses and everything. So being respectful, and so changing that narrative as we're approaching. People talk about the new earth. The new earth is still not defined. We're still discovering it, but we're still part of the old earth where we're transitioning. Go rewrite the history that it really is, because history is not written only by the victors. So they're going to tell their narrative. And that's how history perpetuates. It's so true. When I was in junior high, there was a saying that says, those who don't learn from history are bound to repeat it. Well, it's the same thing with paranormal, because that is a tape recorder of the past and maybe even the future, because we can sometimes tap in like this, predictions. So if we get awarenesses of these things, we can actually be more accountability in how we go forward with things.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that more and more, like more and more studies also done into the other realms. And it's funny that you mentioned, the future, because I believe, I'm not sure if this is a recent study or an old study that's now, gaining some traction again, but that events in the future can change the past somehow. It's all on the science calls, of course, the quantum field, the quantum level.
Yeah, we were
They're
just watching the newest Quantum Leap series here in the United States on Netflix, and it will date how old I am. I grew up with the original Quantum Leap. So, but what I find interesting when we watch some of these stories, like you were saying about your wife taking you to the movies and stuff, superheroes, I watched The Matrix, I've watched some superheroes. There's a show called Sandman on Netflix. There's a reason why there's a story there, because somebody has tapped into some information. And it's really funny how we can actually vibrate the information that we're learning. And that goes back to your spirituality, yourself, or anything that tunes to you. When I was looking at my paranormal stuff, I was very active in my LDS religion at the time. But I came across a book from Sylvia Brown about interpreting dreams. And because I had precog dreams consistently, and I was trying to understand them. And this was a book from the library. And I was like, oh, I don't know. It's kind of crossing that line kind of thing, that label. But she wrote something in her book that said, take what you want and leave the rest. And I kind of breathed into that. I was like, oh my gosh. And that became like a really core belief system in me, where that could apply to anybody. The saying, everyone has an opinion and buzz, I'm not going to use a bad word for editing purposes, but take what you want and leave the rest. Just like everyone has an opinion on how to be a parent. You should raise a baby a certain way. Well, there are certain scientific things you should be doing and not doing. But as far as styles and things, if it aligns to you and it works and they're thriving and surviving, why? I used to work child welfare here. I had more people giving me power as a social worker because they were afraid of me. And I was like, no, I will advocate for you. I've actually kept more children in homes because somebody else's opinion thought it wasn't good. We have families who are like, they're not taking care of their kid because A, B, and C. I'm like going, where did you get that lens? Well, my mom, A, B, and C. I'm like going, so it goes back to attachment there. I'm like going, there's a whole thing we can look at of why we respond to certain things. And that's also how we heal ourselves. Why are we not doing something that's healthy for us? Well, that might be healthy for you, but not for them. And that is okay. So take what you want and leave the rest. Just like anything we said here on the podcast and shared, you may agree or disagree, and that is fine. But as long as it's a value to you and it's filling you up and not hurting you, please do what you want with it.
Yeah. And that's also a very large part indeed of the pagan practice, of the polytheistic practice. There are no dogmas, there are no set rules. So I love how that just connects with each other, like your story and your husband's story. It's the same, just, on a very personal level. And that's absolutely awesome. And I'm very familiar with the childcare and stuff. I'm going through some things with my ex as well, and
sorry to hear that.
It's amazing is probably not the right word, but let's say astounding how much just one unfounded claim can do. And also from what I heard from my my attorney who helps me with this, she specialized in in these kind of family cases, and just one claim can turn someone's life upside down, and so many times just baseless. And then in such.
Hi, Kitty.
Hi, Kitty. We're cat people, so that was a treat for us.
Yeah, no, he's
a ginger too.
Oh yeah, oh god, yeah. Me and gingers, I don't know what it is. There's something about them. Wife's a ginger, daughter's a ginger, ex is a ginger, cat's a ginger. It's just.
I have a thing for ginger too. He just happens to not have red hair.
Yeah, no, but or was I? With
but you understand about the claim and stuff. I actually went into the social work. Well, hi, Purr. Saying hi. What's your kitty's name?
His name is Timmy.
Timmy, hi. So I was actually in the foster care system 3 times when I was a child. So yes, and I became a social worker. So I had positive experiences with social workers instead of them being the enemy. Let's put it that way. But I wrote papers on accountability in social work in the studies. And that's been one of the basis of why I went to mental health and things like that, is because those traumas that happen because of the intersectionality of things that are impacting us was big. And I will tell you, I wasn't in the foster system very long. It was kind of like a weekend, a couple days thing. But even then I was dealing with paranormal stuff, and how the more there's trauma, there's more activity because it's feeding off of it. So it's kind of like, what is really going on? But no one had an answer. Their escape was read the scriptures, pray. I'm like, hey, it does work. There's a system to it. He's more pagan than I am. I'm just more inclusive. I'm just kind of different. And that's the nice thing is, but when we needed a safe place to do it, so when people are doing self-discovery on their gifts, that's where we talk about the addiction and stuff, is because when you find community, but you find that something's feeding something that's been missing, we'll tag onto it a little too much. And we need to learn how to step back and go question, is this really benefiting me or hurting me? Because like you were saying about the Greek word addiction, the word addiction means you'll give up that everything for that one thing versus giving up that one thing for everything. Did that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I've dealt with it before in my personal life. But yeah, no. So I totally understand what you're saying, and it's also why communities where you can be yourself, where you can develop as a person, as a soul, it is so incredibly important. And that's actually one of the reasons why I started my own tribe, why the tribe of the Greyhorn Pagans is a thing. I was part of a lot of pagan communities, pagan groups, and I have learned a lot from them. But there seemed to be a trend going on that whenever my wife and I joined a new group, we were always very well liked, where she is very, very love, very light, but also brings the witchy vibes. So, a lot of magic, really cool. I was always well liked because I come with good information. I'm always open for chats and also the podcast. And for some reason, the leaders of those groups eventually felt threatened by our presence. So they started to kind of work us out or, bend the rules because, they can do something, but we can't because of reasons. And even though it's rules that they set themselves, and if you call them out on it, then you're still to blame. Especially the latest group before I started my tribe, and I'm not ashamed to name them Heathens of Oath and Honor. Definitely started out that way. A lot of oaths were broken. Very little honor was to be had in the end. I will say I have met some amazing people. I have learned a lot, and it is definitely thanks to that group that I'm now able to have my own tribe. But they were telling me the craziest thing, that I needed to control my wife because she was inviting like some of her witchy friends, bringing a little more magic into it, but that was not the pagan way. That was not the way that they saw the group. And it's like, it's quite literally a very big part of heathenry as well, the magic aspect. Like, we had witches, we had seers and all of that. But because I was an admin and because I am her husband, I was told, control your wife. And when I told her, she just laughed. And she said, like, it's not going to happen. I was like, no, you do your own thing. And, I can say something about it, but you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah. And that's where the trauma from organized religion can come into play with anything. When we talk about community, we want community, but we want to feel safe in that community. And truthfully, community is just you and somebody else. We're a community together. And there's sub communities, but but being targeted when somebody feels threatened because there's this hierarchy causes discord many times. And definitely sounds like you're not alone in that experience, or your wife and many people out there. And so work on the individual self, I always tell people, like, if they're having conflict with their kids or their relationships. I go, how are you having a relationship with yourself? Because how are you showing up in that healing, like forgiveness, the shaming, learning compassion? Because once we can start doing that with ourselves, we're able to be more in community because we are more connected to the whole versus the individual. And that's what happens with people. And I'm going to stereotype this, people in leadership. They feel like there is this priority that if they can't stay within that safety bubble, nothing else matters because that's their lens. Because whatever people are reflecting on them, that's feeding them because they haven't worked on themselves. So yeah, people start things. I mean, here I am. I'm the CEO and founder of Willow Medela Wellness, but I'm a partner with him. Yes, my name is this, but just because the paperwork is a hierarchy does not mean I'm the hierarchy. Yes, I have the education, but he has expertise that I don't have access to. So he's the holistic specialist. I can't call myself that. I can call him that because that's his specialty. Titles are just titles. So when we look at community, you need to know what that really means for you and be okay with saying, I found my tribe, but this is also my other tribe.
Yeah.
And that's how I met him. I met my tribe, but I also had many other tribes, and I always made sure they never intersect. It was only when I allowed us going ghost hunting where I let the tribes intersect. And I found that allowed more autonomy in healing and communication and connection with myself and the spirit and the elements and things like that. It's crazy when I hear that there's a fairy in my backyard and blah, blah. I'm like, okay, I know where that came from. And I'm like, you got it taken care of? Yeah, I'm like, good, because I don't want to deal with it. It's like, I don't have it. I just do not have in my scope of ability to do that because I'm not as sensitive to that awareness. But that also could be my gifts or my biases. And that's where I'm looking at too.
Yeah, how are you? Okay, thank you. Got space on my desk back. It's every time when I do a podcast or I'm recording anything, he has to be here.
I think we have 8 cats. So we were already cat people when I love dogs, by the way. He's a pet psychic too. Yeah. That's one of his specialties. I can't do that. I can talk to the cows, but very limited on animals.
So how I got to learn all this is through other people, is through the interactions.
The community.
Yeah. Of how did you learn that and how that worked and do it on me so I can actually get the actual full experience, the full download of how that works. And so then I can actually start warping into how I want to do it, how I want to present it. Cause it's almost like a magic trick. It really is. It's like a magic trick. Like, let's do this and let's move that. And where was that thought going? Oh, let's move this. And you were just thinking about that, weren't you? Oh yeah, I was. Okay. That's okay. Let's move this. And we start going up and down with the process of what they're feeling, of what their emotions, and it is a type of mediumship where we start going in with the person of, this is how you're feeling. And I'm sorry, but this is how I'm feeling. I'm excited for you. This is a good improvement. And so we do these correlations of where are we going in life? Like, some of us, yeah, we want to be doctors. I've known plenty of spiritual, I'm going to call them spiritualists, that who do the crystal healing and end up, I want to become a doctor. Where in the crap? Because you learn crystals and this, you want to become a doctor? You want to become a psychiatrist? Where is this idea coming from? Because people, if you look at it, we all have these different points of energies in our body. If we don't take care of them correctly, we actually feel like we're missing out on a lot of things. And so if we don't do the grounding work of our business, like we don't start from the ground up and start with how we're going to do this, or where the phone call is going to be transferred to. You start from the ground up. And with like other things, like let's take religion. Well, you got to start with a community of like, who wants to believe in what I believe? It's kind of what it is. It's like, who wants to believe in what I believe? And you get people like that. It's like, oh, I believe so totally what you Bigfoot. I'm totally in the Bigfoot. Let's follow each other and let's go find Bigfoot. And so you connect with those communities, and I've been with those communities, and truthfully, I'm like, after a while, you guys just get icky and sucked into it, and like, this isn't being human. This isn't connecting with nature. This is want to be with nature. And so you have those groups where you connect and you validate and you validate each other's emotions. Like, how do you feel? And we're drumming together and we're singing and we're doing that. But yet you have those other groups like, we all worship the goddess, and start singing, and then suddenly it gets into something like, that's different.
And that's okay to
And
say.
that's okay. See, it's
say,
like,
and say, okay, I got what I needed with the community. I still have connection with it. And if that doesn't align for the now, that's okay. I can take a break. If I feel aligned to it, you can go back to it or use references from it. So that's the part of growing. That's the definition of growing, is taking what you learned from those references and incorporating it in yourself, and how you work. Either you use it, lose it, or abuse it. You can take whatever you want, and it's just going to do what it's going to do.
True. I mean, that's definitely, I mean, another one of those reasons why I started my tribe. Like, I've had plenty of examples of how not to do it. So I took those and I was just like, okay, well, I know, what I should try and avoid. I mean, there will be pitfalls along the way, of course. You'll lose a member here or there because of something that you, or like really was too, that I didn't see, or, had allowed for too long because of my own curiosity, because of my own interests, that I was too focused on that and didn't see like what it was doing for other members in the tribe. But I mean, those are also things that I had to learn from. And yeah, through my tribe, through podcasting, which I've been doing for the last, 4 years, I want to say now. I have learned so much, and I've seen so many communities and so many businesses and ideas like yours grow. And it's so interesting that ever since, like, I've talked to so many people who had their awakening, in 2020 or like around 2020, and it's like, did everybody have, their awakening like 5 years ago? It was a major event. There was definitely a major awakening happening at that time as well. And we're still not done with that. And it's so beautiful to see, because I know when I was in my teenage years, gosh, I could have used people like you. I was, but yeah, it wasn't really, especially here in the Netherlands, because, we're a sober folk. Just be yourself, just act normal. And that's, it's fine. Don't be here. Don't be there. Just be like straight down the middle. It's perfectly fine. It's, which sometimes kind of crosses over into like psychology and psychiatry as well. It's just, well, the book says this, so because it's this, I should be doing that. Stein? Yeah. Okay. Did it work? Yeah, it worked. No. And it's a damn shame. Eventually I started to outsmart the psychologists, which is not okay. They started believing me when I just said, oh yeah, thank you. This worked, great.
Take me a while, leave the rest kind of thing you're doing right there.
Yeah.
This kind of goes along with everything else. I mean, like, I've worked from adolescence into geriatrics. My background's very versed in mental health and the medical aspect of things, and also healthcare and healing. But the one thing I found is, like, I even talk about, like, there's no book on tarot rearing. Now, I say that, but nobody knows that a friend of mine gave me a book on child rearing for pagans. And this is when I was an active LDS. I loved it. I'm like, because that was so good. But there was this book called Dr. Spock, and that was, for generations, was the go-to for parenting here in the States. I don't know in Europe, but I go, Dr. Spock never had children. Why are you taking advice from someone that hadn't been through it? So you almost have to find what works, and that's where you go to who's experienced things, because we don't have any other reference. Their reference may be maybe not the best, but it's the first one you have, and you have to grow from there. So the fact that you started your own tribe and you've learned along the way, and like even the podcasting community is its own asset, a tribe, and there is learning from it, from new tech to not old tech. Some people still jive better with the old tech because it had better resonance, and maybe the vibration's better. Maybe the communication's better because that's how the energy from the people are resonating with it. So we learn from those things. And that's exciting. Isn't it exciting that you can sit here and have a conversation with a medicine man and a therapist, talk about the paranormal, where that would be so taboo a year ago.
Yeah. No, I've said many times, that's why I love podcasting. It's almost instantaneous, even though we're, I don't know how many hours apart. It's pretty much instantaneous, talking about topics that we love, and
he's talking about crystals and people becoming doctors. Well, he met me. I was already in school. I'm in my doctor program. His wife is going to be a doctor, not a medical doctor, but I'm going to have a doctor of social work. It's just a title. It just said I just did some extra education. That's really all it says. But it gives me precedence and clout. But when it comes down to it, I'm still Danielle. I just happen to have gifts. I have references and experiences, and I'm willing to share them with people who want to glean from it or question it or even boo at it. And that is fine. But as long as we're being respectful in the process, let's have community and conversation, whatever that is.
And I think on that beautiful statement, it's a good time to wrap up, a good way to wrap up. Yeah, thank you both so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun. Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stuff to think about, and I'm gonna have to tell my wife about this. And this is another one that I'm gonna have to share with her before I share it with everyone else. The second one in 3 days that I'm gonna have to share with her. Like, hey, you're gonna love this one too.
Tell her the therapist is excited for the death doula.
I will. I most certainly will. She is the thing that she wanted to do also because of her gifts, because she believes that it is helping her with that, and she wants to, through her gifts, help others with that as well. So yeah, where may the good people find you? How can they contact you if they would, need any of your service or ideas, or just have a good chat for about an hour and a half?
Yes, you can look us up on our website, www.willowmedelawellness.com. Medela spelled Medela. So also you can look my name up on Facebook and connect through me there, because I know there's always this media thing where communication, but we also have we can talk through Snapchat and things like that. Find me on Instagram. Just reach out. We'll arrange something. We'll have a conversation. But if you want to look us up, willowmedelawellness.com is the practice, and both of our services are available. And if you don't see a service, just email us. We'll have a conversation. We can arrange things, including paranormal investigations. We do that too, but I'm not going to necessarily always advertise it because we're busy people.
Yeah.
But being busy is good, because that means we're getting out there and talking to people that want to hear what's being said.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will, of course, make sure that your links are in the description box down below the video and on the audio platforms as well. I always want to make sure that my guests are well represented as well, because wouldn't really have a podcast without guests. I wouldn't have learned as much as I have if it wasn't for my guests.
Yeah. Well, I just got an article published about my gifts in national magazine. So it's exciting. Things is getting out there. It's exciting. So thank you for having both of us today.
Well, thank you for thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Of course, for everyone watching, for everyone listening, I hope it was good for you too. Do remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you are subscribed, double check if you have the notification bell on. I am getting some comments here and there that YouTube refuses to send out the notifications.
They do that here too. From time. It's
Great.
annoying.
It's a worldwide thing. We're just too good, too high vibe for YouTube.
Even with my page I have YouTube. You can. So
that's a whole other conversation.
We'll do that some other time, perhaps. I mean, you're absolutely more than welcome to come on again. Of course,
it would be a pleasure to come back to have a conversation about anything. Thank you.
For that second conversation, I'd have to get my wife on here as well. She is going to take over the conversation because that's just what she does. When she gets excited, it's, it's like, can I, no? Okay.
Okay.
I'll let you do the talking. That's fine. I'll just sit here and be pretty. But yeah, for everyone listening on either Spotify or Apple Podcast, do leave that 5-star rating as well. It's a small effort, but means the world to me. For everything else, go to our website, www.greyhornpagans.com. And if you want to support our work, support what we do, find us on Patreon, patreon.com/GreyhornPagans. And if you're surfing the web anyway, find them too. Go to the website. Link is in the description box down below. So thank you, everyone. Have a good day, good evening, good night, whatever it may be for you. And I will see you all next time. Bye-bye, everyone. This was yet another amazing episode of the Greyhorn Pagans podcast. We thank you all for watching. We thank you all for listening. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you will be notified whenever we upload something new. Support us on Patreon for early access and for everything else that we do with the tribe, for everything else that we do with the podcast. Find us on www.greyhornpagans.com. For now, we thank you, and until next time.